because
It
I
says
I
so.
can hear you, but I
Okay.
wonder if
Let's change it back to
the mic
built-in
that's being
speakers.
used.
Okay. Okay. Samsung's is not this headset anyway. Okie dokie. So I can hear you, Gwendolyn.
You can
You
hear
can.
me.
Yes, I do. I hear you clear, loud and
You know, we
clear.
need to get you. We need to get you some traveling headphones.
I need a whole mic system that travels with me. You see some people with the little mics that they take out of the bag, and
I say, well,
well, the one I have can travel. I should have just brought it with me, and because it's really good setup. All I need is the power of the computer.
yeah.
So
But
that's
you know what? Moments like this,
it's how
although we
you
hate
learn.
to buy things, what was that?
I said moments like this is how you learn what you need
It's
when you're
how
on the
you
road.
learn. Yes, is how you learn. So we'll get you some, like, Mr. Jack loves headphones. He has like 4 pairs, I think, maybe 6. I know. Make it make sense.
Mr.
But
Jack has all those headphones.
yes, the pair that he has is where you can speak into it and also hear, and there's no wires,
Mm,
right? So I can have him send you the link, maybe. So you
sounds
can
good. I
have like
like that. Makes sense.
a nice
And
non-wired set, nice little
and I
wireless.
do have my Apple computer um, speaker headsets, but they don't ever seem to work proper either. I have the Samsung. Samsungs never work. They're the worst. Samsung is one of the worst headsets I have ever
There
owned.
you go with the
Sorry,
tomfoolery.
have to
Just
trash the
because you didn't
Samsung.
do your job to get prepared for today, um, does not mean that it's a manufacturer issue. Let's just make sure we're clear there, okay?
Now, this is a Samsung problem. I mean, I'm not the only one with
See,
it.
I've
It's the
never had
whole headset
issues with mine. I've never had issues with mine.
because you have a Samsung phone.
I What does that got to do with it? I use my
This one
headphones
does
all over the place.
this does not work for some reason. It doesn't read it. That's okay. That's
You're
okay.
okay. So, are we saying that you're using 2 different ecosystems? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Foster?
It should work because it's just Bluetooth, so it should work on any device.
But you okay, but we know that Apple likes to keep people from doing other things outside the ecosystem. So
No,
are we sure that that's the case?
it's supposed to work. This did not work with my Samsung phone, so I know it's a headset.
So
It's a
that sounds
headset.
like user error.
Anyway, hello, people. I see Food Plane is in the building. Hello, he says. And I also see that he's saying hello to Elise. He's saying hello to us. Hello, Ron and G. And says, I'm going to Trader Joe's. Be right back. Stall on the good talk. There's Lisa. She's going to Trader Joe's. So welcome. If you're in the building, make sure you hit the likes. Make sure you hit the likes. And so here we are. So I want to be back in my house. I don't like being in a cafe. Anyway, just bring
Okay,
that.
but if I may,
Yeah,
it is cool to be out and about when you're doing certain projects. Like, it's not a bad thing to have this different background. It's not a bad
yeah.
thing, provided that you have all your tools together. So I
Are
get
you
that
guys,
not
you guys
being
hear in
quite
the
right.
background? Are you hearing the background? Are you clear? You hear the music in the background?
Can I hear like the people in the cafe?
People, can you hear it?
I can hear them from time to time, but it's not that
Okay.
bad.
Okay, it's not a distraction. Okay.
No,
Okay.
you should ask your audience
Hi,
if they think
audience.
it's done. Your
How do y'all
audience.
feel? We have Bryson in the building. Bryson says, "What's up, Ron? What's up, Gwendolyn? What's up, RLP fam? What's up, everybody? Happy Hump Day." The good thing is I have a mic.
Yes, that's your
So
saving grace.
that makes a difference
So.
too. Jazzy says, "Good morning, beautiful people." And oh, Lee says she doesn't hear the music. Okay, so good. So the sound dampening is working. Nice.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have tools, but
You got
consider this. Consider this like real talk. I know that a number of us, especially in this community and other places, we want things to be perfect, but that doesn't exist. It just doesn't. There will always be something. And if you go live, Lord knows there will always be something. Because I've had some things. I've had some things. Right.
This
so
is very true.
you know, the idea is that you were here because you are intentional with showing up on a daily basis unless something happens, right? And you are here to do what you have to do. So there you go.
Hi, Elise.
Good morning.
Good
morning. I had to take my mute off. I wasn't talking. I didn't move my mouth until I took it off. My mute is on. Let me take that off.
So it's a lot going on. Can we first start with Texas? Can we start with Texas trying to redraw the lines, gerrymandering? It's just pisses me off. Texas is, I love a lot about Texas, but the politics, those people in the politics area, they're just bad. Texas has so many people of color, and so many Democrats live in Texas, and you wouldn't think so because of the gerrymandering. Gwendolyn, you're a Texan.
Let me go to you first. Okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal. And I was going through some old photos, and I remember I have a photo with Governor Ann Richards. I was in high school, and I was literally considering getting into politics. So literally, I have my picture, Capitol Hill behind the deal, like Gwendolyn was on it. So them trying to really wanting to redraw all of the districts to make sure that we don't get representation. You know, if you're not trying, you're not cheating, right?
Right.
So I get it. Our issue is this. It's not just that there are a lot of your bigger cities, your major cities are democratic in thought and nature. Yes, right?
Yes.
I'm not saying that it's attached to education, but there is a slight little play there. When you get out into the sticks, and Texas is huge. I don't know if people realize just how big it is. It's huge. You get out to those areas, people will vote against their best interests. And just because you have melanin does not mean that you identify with all the people who have melanin.
Okay? Yes.
Exactly.
So when you say, how is it that people who are of Latino, Hispanic descent, how could they possibly, because they don't see themselves like us? Like, that's a different story over there. It's a different story, and it's not the same across the board. So yeah, there is a lot, like Texas is really purple, but it's two things. One, people got to get up and do what they have to do.
Right.
That's one. And then the other part is, for some reason, you got to get people to stop voting against their best interest. But there is this class play that if I do this, I can be part of that crowd. It will never happen, Captain. Not gonna happen. Ever.
True. So true. It's not gonna happen. And that's a major issue down there. And of course, you know, getting out and voting. You got to get out and vote. And as you look at it, you know, this is at the urging of the person that's supposed to be, quote unquote, leading this country, of course, leading the country to hell. But anyway, and then you have a state where you know that what you want to do is not right. You want to go into, you only have, I'm trying to remember, do they only have like 4 Democratic representatives in the House? I mean, on the federal level.
I think it might be. I need to go back and check. And I know, like, when Sylvester Turner, the representative, when he passed away, you know, we were asking. I say we because he's Houston, but they've been asking for a special session some time ago, and they didn't want to fill that spot. So there's a lot. There's a lot here, but yeah, because
Abbott had already decided that he wouldn't fill the spot until November. Now you kind of know why they want to wait till November. And then they're going to, now the threat is for any state Democratic representative who decides not to show up, because they have to be in the space for the Republicans who are from the majority to do this voting, right? They're threatening. He down there now threatening to arrest these people. If they see them on the street, they're gonna arrest them. What are you gonna do? Make me do it from the jail cell? I don't know what you're gonna do. But if they're not in the space, because they know they need them in the space, and I think that's the problem that they've had for so long. You look at the state of Texas, they can't break this horrible pattern as a whole state of keeping these Republicans in office when they have statewide elections. You had the opportunity to get rid of Abbott, you didn't do it. You had the opportunity to deal with Tom Cruise, you didn't do it twice. It was twice, right? Since I've been paying attention to him, and you chose not to do it. And as Gwendolyn says, when you talk about different communities down there, even after Uvalde, those people went out and voted this horrible man back into office, right? They voted him back into office after children from their community were massacred. So you have to look at that. And then there are lots of things that also are a part of that piece too. A part of it is they also have some companies down there sent the members of the Latin community, the Spanish speaking community, communications threatening them, threatening their livelihoods and telling them who to vote for. So that's a part of it across the country. Companies have done things like that. So it's a couple of things, and it is that belief amongst other people in the, as they said, the people of color, BIPOC, whatever they want to call it, community, that somehow, especially when they are better than, particularly American blacks. American black people, and that's across the board. And even with some of I've spoken to people in Texas, black people who vote in Texas or can vote in Texas, and the one in particular, she really thought that this is gonna work for her, and one of them was a contractor, and she was talking about the H-1 visa, and that's when I told her that, first of all, I looked it up. I was like the fact checker for Bill O'Reilly at that point. I looked up on my laptop and told him that was done under Bush. So that had nothing to do with the Democrats to start with. And to
always.
And now, of course, you pay the price, because they now do not have to include you on their contracts to do any of this stuff. The state of Texas, yes, purple, but you have a big issue of even, I'll say this, because we've talked about this a lot. If you're sitting down there in comfort of being, quote unquote, an independent, not getting to vote in those primaries to make sure that if you want to vote for a Democrat, that they're on there. You have to.
That's very true.
You have to show up differently. We have to start being more strategic until we figure out what can be effective. We got to be more strategic. And what are the people of Texas? What can they say at this point? They can file lawsuits, take it to this current Supreme Court, who will do whatever, because they already rights parts of taking pieces and weakening the voting rights amendments, right? And so they did that over time. And so Elise, you bring up,
but Elise, if I may interrupt, you bring up a good scenario there is that there are so many independent voters in Texas as well. So now you are watering down your primary vote that way as well. So not only do you have the gerrymandering, but you also have now the independents that can't vote.
Right. And I think a part of it is like, and this is my opinion, I think it's like so many things to the Black community. For somehow a lot of Black people, especially Black people who had resources, thought it was, I don't know, somewhere in their head, they thought, okay, I can be an independent, because they love to say it. They say it proud. I'm an independent.
Oh, I say it proudly. I do.
My point is still, and what? How does it benefit the population at large? Then, like I said before to you, it allows you the ability, to straddle the fence and decide what you want for yourself and not think about the collective.
Yeah.
That's what being independent is. And we are a collective. And I always use the Borg as my example for the way they destroyed them was to say to Hugh, you are an individual. They totally destroyed them because they taught him to be independent of the collective. And we didn't look at how could this impact us by being independent of the collective in the way that it has. And that's what it has, because you don't have the ability to vote on those people in those primaries in a lot of places. Some places, but in those places where you cannot, you go, man, they didn't get in, so I'm not going to vote. I'm going to do all these things. And I think somehow we have got to get past what is attractive, and for lack of a better word, it's like, I'll put it this way. Lots of people bought the vehicle that I will never buy from a human that I would never support in our communities because that was a status to them. It wasn't about it being electric. It was a status.
It was the status. It's always the status.
And for some reason, and I haven't really delved into it with people who are independent, for some reason, they felt that to be able to say that was somehow status. But you became what Martin Luther King said. You became one of the most dangerous people to our community in America because it allows you not to vote to support the community as a collective.
Well, it's interesting you would say, because when I first, I was a Republican. For all those that know, I was a Republican until 2019.
Wow.
So, but I didn't vote Republican. I voted Democrat since Clinton. So, and then I realized that I was like, after the whole change of MAGA and everything, I said I'm no longer a part. The Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party. But I just came to the conclusion this year, as we evolve in our thinking, because when I became an independent, it was just like, okay, I'm not ready to do the Democrats because they piss me off all the time, and then I don't like the Republicans, so it's kind of my neutral place. But then this year, with the mayoral election going on here in New York City, and not being able to participate in Zoran being voted into office, that was the part where I said, you know what, I wanted to be a part of that vote. I wanted to be a part of the Democratic primary. And then I realized that my hands were tied in a way that I never thought was going to be tied. And so now I am reevaluating. It's either or, because we only have a two-party system.
That's all you have.
And so you have to be on one or the other. And that's what my conclusion has evolved to this day.
So I have a question, and I'm going to channel my two of my favorite ladies, my daughter and Jasmine. My question is, what was so different in 2019, and what were your thoughts on how that particular community that you were attached to attacked Barack Obama when he was running,
right?
And how they've treated people of color since Ronald Reagan and everybody and Nixon. What was your thinking that made you hold on to be a part of, connected to something that a group of people who have clearly demonstrated their disdain for your own people? What made you stay connected into 2019?
Why did I remain a Republican? That's a good question.
2019.
Most of it was lazy. I was just being lazy. I just feel like, I'm not going to take the time to go down and change it and all that stuff. So it was mainly being lazy and procrastinating. Even when like I said, I have not voted for a Republican since Reagan. I know people are like, but I'm transparent. I ain't gonna lie to you. I voted for Reagan, but as I began to grow up and then understood. Remember, I was only 18 years old when I voted for Reagan.
Right.
So I was
I
a
remember
kid.
that.
I was, you don't know all the policies. You don't know the legislation that they're for. You just know that you saw one party as being weak, one party being strong, and you just vote. And then the Republican Party represented for me the party of African Americans before the 60s. So I took pride in being a Republican because it was a Republican Party that was against slavery. It was a Republican Party that did so many things. I know. I know. But
I'm gonna stop you right there.
No. Don't you stop me. I gotta explain myself.
No. I'm gonna stop you because you study history.
Yes.
You study history. You are a person who had those history books in there, and you knew from history that was not the party of Lincoln.
You're right. Yes. However,
now you can finish.
Yeah. So I say no. That was the tradition of the party. It was the party of Lincoln. Republican Party traditionally and by paper and on paper was the party of Lincoln. Then obviously we had the changeover.
Not the party you joined. The Republican Party you joined was not the party of Lincoln. I promise that to you.
Well, at that time, I did not know that. So,
and you were 18, so I understand.
Yeah, I was 18 years old. So, in my 18-year-old self, it was the party of Lincoln. But as I got older, I was just lazy, and I just said, you know what? Even in knowing the history and the transformation of the Republican Party, and that it became I was like, why am I a part of this party? But I didn't think about it. I just voted for the Democrats, so it didn't matter. It didn't matter until 2019 when I began to really analyze. It was when it became MAGA that I began to say, this is no longer for sure the party of Lincoln. It is no longer. It's gone. It's wiped out. There are no people remaining from that party, and then that's when I made the transition out. But it was just most of it was just lazy.
Yeah,
I was a lazy voter.
I'm gonna let you slide on that, but I still, because of
you can challenge me. You can
because of your intellect, and your study of history.
Yes.
And I'm not that much older than you. I knew that was not the party that was Lincoln.
Right.
When I was young, I knew that wasn't the party of Lincoln. I knew when I saw it, and my children will tell you to this day, when Ronald Reagan came in, I told them that's the Grand Wizard. And I explained to them what that was and who that was. I also, as you talk about your transition time and what convinced you, and I'm really delving into this because you're not the only person that thinks like this. But it didn't take how horribly they treated the first Black person to be elected president and his family,
right,
to convince you, because those people are you.
Right.
It didn't take them starting to change to the Tea Party, which came before that.
Right.
Or the
you still had the Republican Party. There was some Tea Parties in the Republican Party, but the Republican Party was still the Republican Party. It had not become the Tea Party yet.
But my thing is, they were not the so we're gonna talk about the history of the Republican Party. So after Johnson, they didn't like the Democrats, because a lot of them used to be in the Democratic Party. They didn't like Johnson being open to change, so they switched over to Republican. The Dixiecrats, the racist party,
exactly, and they were the most racist. Right.
They switched to the Republican Party. The Republican Party that you joined, the Dixiecrats switched over there.
Yes.
The ones who hate you the most switched over there. So when you signed up, you signed up with a group of people who hated you most in that party, because that was before all this. They hated you more, right? That was in the 60s. So
but they were still Republicans that were hardcore, that was still part of the Republican Party, fighting to bring the party back to where it used to be.
And so you find comfort in the but.
Yes, I do.
You find comfort in the but. But the reality is that these people have been working for over 50 years
For 50
for your
years.
destruction. Longer than
Yes.
that. They've been working for hundreds of years.
Oh,
because I
well,
tell
yeah, they
people,
haven't stopped. When you
they've
think
been
about
working,
the
they haven't stopped. They haven't stopped
Right.
since they destroyed Reconstruction.
right,
Well, they've been working for
they've been
hundreds
working
of
since
years.
Reconstruction. They've
They've been working for
working
hundreds of
since
years
the
to
amendments.
destroy us, and they continue to
Yes.
work that way. And to be able to ignore the horrible treatment of saying Barack Obama, who was born in Hawaii, was not an American. And some of the people who said it weren't even born in America. Ted Cruz was not born in America. Okay, let's get that
No.
straight. Okay, so we go from there.
Yes.
And then, so that part, okay, they treat him that way, all of that. They didn't let him do a Supreme Court justice, none of that. Okay, we get there. Then we get to electing this horrible man for the first time in 2016.
Yes.
At that point, you didn't say, let me get out of this mess.
Oh no, I did. I just was lazy and didn't
3
do
more
it.
years.
Yeah,
We stayed 3 more years.
it took. I just realized. I said, well, I didn't know. I changed over. I think it was 2019. It had to be 2019. It may have been sooner, but I remember. But this is a good conversation because again, Auntie Gwendolyn's in the background smiling and doing her thing. But also, I was a true believer of the Republican Party as a working person, working on Wall Street. It was part of my persona in the way I lived my life at that time.
Okay,
I really didn't give a. And let me just, if I may be
I want you to
transparent.
define what you mean by true believer. Like, what does
Right.
that mean?
At that time of my life, I saw the Democrats as the worst decision you could make as being a part of a party that was so intellectually weak in so many areas. Well, this is how I felt back then. And so I'm being transparent with being transparent.
Yeah.
I hated the Democrat Party because of my own trauma.
Yes.
My own trauma from the Democrats in my own neighborhood. For instance, when we were growing up, my mother would work. We would not be able to get summer jobs because my mother's income. However, I used to see all the kids that were on welfare down the block and around the corner, and they would get all the summer jobs. They caused all the crime. They're the ones that were picking on me. They were the ones that called me, the white boy. So there was a lot of trauma that also was a part of my decision making. I had to learn that was all part of why I made those decisions is because of I began to not like these particular types of people that the Democrats were supporting. And so it was my trauma. I was operating also out of my trauma. And I was like, I will not support that. I'm not supporting welfare. I'm not supporting. Little did I know, though, as a teenager, and until I got older and started studying history and saying, wait a minute, Black people, Spanish people are not the majority that are doing, that are getting welfare. So I had to learn. I had to evolve and educate myself over time to change. But when I first started as a Republican, it was many reasons, obviously because of the history, but it was also because I saw a weak party. And I still see the Democrats as weak and they piss me off on every level. However, they are the closest to my what I want accomplished in America today. I don't like the Republicans at all, what they've become. It's not the same Republican Party of Lincoln. But I realize that the Democrats still have a long way to go, but they are closer to my belief system.
And it's interesting that all of those things you mentioned, you attributed to Democrats, right?
Right.
Who was the one that incorrectly identified who the welfare queens were?
With the Democrats. Again, it came to.
It started with Ronald Reagan. Let's go back to Reagan.
Ronald Reagan, but
gotta
also
go back to
Democrats
Ronald Reagan.
But a part of it is that during the race, during the primaries.
But a part of it was Ronald Reagan started a lot of this
just started a lot of stuff.
myth, the whole myth out there. You know, you saw what they did and how they did it and all of those pieces. We have to even talk about, when you talk about what was happening in communities, who put those guns and drugs in the community?
Right.
George Bush. He was the head of the CIA, the first George Bush. He was the head of the CIA. He worked with Noriega and brought those drugs into this community and into the country and into communities. Those are facts. Those were Republican people. What we do is we tend to buy into the negativity about our own people. We are our own worst enemy. And somehow, you know, and you and I had a little bit of this conversation. It's this othering. Those other people are so different than me. And that's what and it's the caste system, right? Because I'm here, I'm better than. But in actuality, they see you as the same. They don't see you as better than. And a part of liking them in the financial part is, so you don't like the fact that people should spread the wealth, but you like capitalism and you want to keep more money in your pocket, which is why people straddle the fence. That's why a lot of these black people became independents, because they can straddle the fence and protect their money. Because when the Republicans say, hey, this is what I'm gonna do for your money, they slide on over there and vote for that. They may not tell you, but that's what they do. That's why they keep their
and I'm not, and I will say, like I said, being transparent.
Yes.
During my years of working on Wall Street and being around that environment, it definitely conditioned my thinking as well to say, I really did not at that time, I cared about the Black community, but I really didn't care about the Black community when I look back at it.
Right.
Because I was just about me. I was very selfish, very self-centered, and I mentioned here before, I was a snob. The reason why I understand Republicans so well is because I used to be that way. I used to be the Candace Owens. I used to be those people. And so that is why I have a clear understanding of where they're coming from. And usually it is a place of trauma. When you think about the history when you think about somebody picked on Candace Owens, somebody did something cruel to her, and she took it out on the whole race. When you look at the history now of Thomas, what's his name, the justice, Black justice. My brain just froze. Help me. It's the Black man in the justice, SCOTUS.
Oh, Clarence Thomas.
Clarence Thomas. Couldn't get his first name. Clarence Thomas. When you look at the biography of Clarence Thomas, he was picked on. He was called tar baby. He was called this and that. He grew some kind of detachment from his own community because of his trauma. Now, that doesn't say it's right. That's just say he needed therapy, like we all needed therapy or need therapy to unravel all that stuff.
And that's about self-hatred, right? That's about
self-hatred. I was going to say that.
We go through trauma. Who hasn't been traumatized by something? I've been traumatized.
Right.
It's how we deal with that trauma. So your trauma taught you to dislike, which is intentional. I tell people a lot of things are just intentional. It teaches you to hate your people, hate yourself.
Yes.
And that self-hatred rose over to your people because you didn't like something. You don't like what they called you. I can hate all skinny women. I can hate a lot of things, all big women, because people call me skinny all my life. I could do all that stuff because that's what they said when I was younger. But my thing is, when you don't understand that that's about self-hatred, and trust me, but I want people to also understand much of it is not just the Black people who respond to their trauma. I often ask, what happened to Stephen Miller? Somewhere along the way, something happened to that man.
Well, they
that
say
made
he was
him
turned down
as a young
by
person
Spanish women.
Who he is. Say that again.
They said, there's an article that Steve Miller was allegedly in school. He wanted to date a Spanish girl, and she rejected him, and he never recovered from that rejection.
Right. And so now you pay the price once they get in positions of power, because it's all about power and control, right?
Well, that's what
About
Jazzy
power
says.
and
Jazzy
control.
says here, Clarence Thomas wanted power and understood how to get it was by putting down your own. But I will add to the thinking of the power is that if you operate out of a mindset of scarcity and trauma of something that may have happened from your community, it doesn't make it an excuse, but it is a lot of reasons why you see, when you look back on some of the history of the Black Republicans in today's world, not the old Republicans, but today, the people that say they're Republicans, there's more to the reason why. There's a lot of trauma that has gone on. Either they were picked on, or something went on. In my case, I can only speak for myself.
So
Myself was that I was the one that was.
You want to get to the real core? You want to
Yeah.
get to the real core why people do that? Money, power is greed, power, and control.
And I would tell you, I was greedy and self-centered. Yes.
Because when you look at, because I'm going to take you back to some history when you talked about the Republican Party. So the first Black representatives we had, because that was that year back in the 1800s, those were Republicans under the Lincoln side. Yes. So those are the people that are responsible for even the first civil rights piece that came out in the 1800s was because of them. Public education for all was because of them. They would now be considered Democrats and hated because they wanted to make sure that everyone was supported. We can use our trauma, but so far at some point it becomes you. At some point it becomes you working you, and that's how you saw that's how we take our revenge, that's how we get our power, that's how I'm going to show them. And what you end up doing, and as you're discovering, that didn't help your people. And I think that what people understand, I don't care if you work on Wall Street or you have $1 billion, if your skin has a hue like mine,
you are the same. They're going to treat you the same way no matter what. Exactly.
You are the same. And all of them, I'm sure that a lot of the ones that are out there, the Black people that are out there with money and places are independents, but they don't understand that you still don't have the power that you think you have.
You don't have
any power.
It's in your head. Yeah. It's a lot of it is in your head. What's that?
I thought Jazzy was Clarence Thomas was married to a Black woman first. Oh yeah, that's his only child.
Yes, he was.
But he was also a sexual predator. That's the original one.
A lot of things.
That's the one that as Thurgood Marshall says, do not support someone simply because they're Black.
Exactly.
And they pulled him out. And I even know a woman who was waiting in the wings to testify against him. When he's doing his hearing, because she knew of his sexual harassment. She knew what he did. She knew that stuff. But look at the pattern of the group of people. They seem to embrace people who do all kinds of horrible things.
All kinds of stuff.
It gives them control.
That's the beauty of education and evolving and learning. Because once you start learning, then you start evolving. And when you start evolving, you start making changes. And so I see your face over there, Gwendolyn. I don't know why you got the face going like that, but share it with me. Share.
So yes, you can learn, but it has to resonate before you can evolve. Just because you learn about it doesn't mean you're changing.
Right, but you have to learn first and then let it resonate.
And there is a choice. Yeah. These are choices. Like it's like Ms. Lee said, everybody got trauma. We all have trauma, but it's a choice to do the things you're doing. I know we talk about capitalism being the worst thing ever. However, you are choosing to operate. It is a tool like money. Yes. Money is not the root of all evil. It is a choice in how you choose to use it. It is a choice on how you choose to participate in a capitalistic system. These are choices. So there is a choice to do what you're doing. It's a choice to take your trauma this way versus saying, I don't want to see anybody else go through what I went through.
It's true.
And I think
it's an awareness. It's being aware. That's why in this stage of my life, I'm all about being woke. I believe in learning as much as you can and teaching and sharing, because it will prevent people from going down that same road I went down.
Right. Right.
You know,
And a part
I
of
have one more
educate-
thing, only
Yeah.
because I'm listening to you, and I feel like I don't know who I married, so we got to talk about some things like in counseling. Just so you know, I was like, "What the what? We didn't talk about this." But I think about because I talked about this like not too long ago, but I think about a quote from Master Yoda. And I
Yes.
know you hate when I talk about how fear does not have to be a motivator, but they
Right.
also use fear in there. Right.
Absolutely.
And we talk about like, how fear leads to anger because you feel as if I have no power. Right. And anger
Mhm.
leads to hate. And then hate
Mhm.
leads to suffering. So much so that you would much rather vote against your best interests.
Absolutely. And
It's true.
And going on G's thing about fear, I have this movie that I watch. It's an African movie. I like, my family laughs because I watch a lot of African movies.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
the little boy was different. He was albino, and of course, they were attacking him and stuff. And what his father told him, he said, "What they don't understand, they fear, and what they fear, they try to destroy."
Mm.
That's the
Yes.
whole thing.
Very
and I think
true.
one of the things is to think about how I want to go back to the comment you made about Democrats, how they're
Yes.
weak, they're this. We're 92% of us are Black women. We're the most educated constituents in the country, period. There's no
I
lack of
hear you.
intellect in Democrats.
But the
And I'm
people
gonna
in
go to-
charge of
when
the
we talk
Democrats
about
is not the
weakness.
92 women,
Let me-
92%.
Let me get to the point of weakness.
Yes. Yes.
Folks, when we say we're looking at what they want to take care of, people say that's weak. Why is it weak to be human?
No, I don't think we mean that way. I think people that are, at least myself, I'll say for myself as an independent who is now saying I have to make a choice between the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, what do I not like about the Democrats? Is not the 92% of the women of the Democrats, which are women that are supportive and strong and powerful and go in the streets and do what they need to do. They're educated. They're pushing. Like you have Jasmine Crockett, who's a strong, powerful, educated, full of insight. But the establishment of the Democrat Party does not support those people. And you're seeing it played out now here in New York City with Zoran. How is it possible that the Democratic Party leadership, not the Democratic Party as a whole, the Democratic Party leadership is not getting behind the Democratic candidate? There's only one Democrat candidate running for mayor of New York. And yet the Democrats' leadership to this day, to this minute, they have not put in their bid to support their own Democratic candidate running for mayor in New York City. That's what I mean. The Democrats eat their own. They destroy their own. That's how they operate. That's a history. Look at what they did to all of their candidates that had, maybe they did something wrong. Maybe they would do it. Maybe they passed the wrong legislation, or maybe they were just a handicap or something. But they eat their own. The Republicans do not eat their own. They will stick by that criminal, whatever that case may be, until the bitter end, until it's the end. But the Democrats, I'm watching right now in New York City, and it pisses me off that Zoran is running. He's a Democratic nominated by a landslide. And these folks are still saying, we don't know if we should support him. That's what I mean. It's the Chuck Schumers. And I love, and don't get me wrong, Hakeem was my man here in New York City. He was my congressman for many, many years. I photographed him. I know him. He's a good guy. And he's kind of like gone into the establishment. How can you say you are not supporting the Democratic nominated person?
So as we talk about the weaknesses, right?
Yes.
When are you going to set up the appointment so I can meet you at his office?
Well, that's what I keep saying.
Let's go meet him. Let's go, because they're responding to the loudest noises.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to see that nobody, I don't care which party it is, because they're cowards on that Republican party. They're just not saying anything. They're saying it to everybody else, but they're cowards there. They'll not vote. Yeah. They'll do all these things. They're cowards because they're of what they're responding to, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you then say, okay, Representative Jeffries, let's sit down and talk about this, because this is what you need to do, because you're losing some stuff. Until we start using our voice, because the people have the power. We are looking for saviors in parties and individuals, instead of understanding that we are what we're looking for. We are who we're looking for. And
but it still doesn't.
But what it doesn't change is how we sit on platforms as Democrats or as Black people and bash each other. Those people bash each other offline. We do it online. We do it full publicly online. And I think at some point we have to figure out. While I was in Texas, I wrote down Jeffrey's number, because I said I'm going to call people. I wrote down his. I wrote down Cory Booker. I'm in D.C. Everybody represents me, because guess what?
Yeah,
they won't let out to have a voting representation. Right?
Yes.
So let's make appointments. I think it's time for us to stop talking and do some stuff. We got to meet with these people. We got to get up. We have to be like the 11 people that got books banned across this country. We got to be in somebody's face all the time. We have to. If you don't like what Jeffries is doing, that's
why I sent him. That's why I sent him a text.
Don't send him a text. You need. I think it's very effective if you say, "Hey, can we meet in person?" Call his office, demand for an appointment with him, and then sit down and talk to him. Because I say this because I have been in my past life. I was very effective on Capitol Hill and getting some things not done to DC that wasn't going to be in the best interest, particularly of our people, by going to them in person. I did not meet with Democrats. I met with all Republicans at the time, because I knew they were in the position at that point in time to make the decision that was going to impact my children's lives and the children of the District of Columbia's lives. I had to meet with them in person. And so I think instead of, I know they're falling short, way short. Everybody falling short, but then we have how do we meet with them?
But my point is, though, this is my overall point, is that again, here in New York City, in real time, and this has been a trend in the Democratic Party for many years, of not supporting themselves. Supporting the people that are, for instance, upstate, we had what's his name running in Rockland County, and they picked the Jewish gentleman over him. They pushed him out because he was with the Palestinians. And so now he's out of his seat, and now this person that is a Jewish gentleman is in the seat. But they pushed him out because he was standing up for Palestine, but that was a Democrat against a Democrat. And they kicked that person out. They all ganged up, and so much so in the last election that they paid for the Republican to win, and we saw that in that strategy. But my reasons of the Democrat falling short as a party, again, not as the majority. The majority of Democrats want working wages, livable wages. They want to live better. The Democrat Party has done amazing work for our country. We wouldn't have the social net, safety nets if it wasn't for the Democrat Party. So not that the Democrat is a total bad situation. It's just that they don't stand up when they need to stand up in the leadership. Let me be more specific. It's the leadership.
And when do we, because I have this conversation often, when do we be the ones that actually say what they've done that have benefited the majority of us? I think we spend so much time talking about how we feel and not stating what they've done. They've done so much for people to be able to, especially people who are like yourself, self-employed.
Right.
You can have better insurance now because of a program that a Democrat put in place, right?
Absolutely.
So we have to start highlighting what they have done to benefit all Americans. None of this has ever been about a particular group of people. It's always been about all people. And I think we have to start highlighting those things, because as long as we use our platforms and denigrate them, then we also become a part of the group that's eating their own.
So we have
people have stuff.
No, this is good. I love it. This is, I mean, because we all represent a portion of the population. So once you're hearing what we're saying, and people are listening, and we're learning from one another. Like, I do believe what you're saying is absolutely correct. We need to celebrate all what the Democrats have done over the years, because we would not have the 40-day work week. We wouldn't have Saturday and Sunday off. There's tons and tons of legislation that has been passed that has benefited the people because of the Democratic Party. So there's not a hatred for the Democrat Party, but it's definitely a anger or a hatred towards the establishment, meaning those that are in leadership.
And I think, don't forget, they're the reason you're able to vote.
Yeah.
They're the reason you're able to vote. They're the reason you are able to afford where you live. They're the reason you were able to, like, people, let's not forget, Clarence Thomas wants to always play the game. They're the reason he was able to go to the college that he was able to go attend, whether he wants to admit that or not. And be able to. You have to. I mean,
I know that the Democrats have done a lot. However, this Democrat Party is not the same Democrats of, people marching in Montgomery, and there's a lot of changes. A lot of this is establishments, people that don't want to move to the side, don't want to give young people a chance to now take over the party. The old guard needs to move to the side and let the young folks lead.
So pushing back on the marches and stuff. Yeah, that wasn't about Democrats and Republicans. Those marches were about rights, civil rights.
About civil rights
that you currently have.
But the Democrats
it happened to be that when those things were being pushed, there was a Democrat sitting in the top seat. And they went to that Democrat and said, look, if you don't do X, Y, Z, this is what we're going to do. So that Democrat responded. It had nothing to do with them leading the charge. It had to do with the people, the collective people, body of people.
The collective people.
Rising up and getting their voices heard, right? And the person who sat in the seat, who had to make the decision, was Democrat. He was in the Democratic Party, which is, of course, when we got to splinter off to the Dixiecrats going to the Republican Party. So those people were sitting there. And on the issue of whether they still have the same values. These Democrats are still trying to go through the courts and fight for some stuff that this group of people are trying to take from us. Are they doing it quietly? Yes, they are. But they're fighting for it. They're still fighting for you and I to have some rights. They're still fighting. They may not. The problem that we have in American society is that the way people want their attention to be gotten is somebody yelling and screaming, cussing and fussing. They don't see the quiet storms that are out there taking place because it's not yelling and screaming. And then mainstream media is only talking about showing the yellers and screamers and the cussers and the fussers.
This is very true. I agree.
I'm a rest now. I'm gonna let somebody else speak.
Jazzy and Mr. B, Brian, what do you guys want to contribute to this conversation?
Brian was here first. Do you want to speak first? You've been waiting for a while, so I don't want to.
Well, gosh, I mean, in the time, gosh, I can't even remember the details of what I was wanted to share, what you guys were hitting on, but the notion of how do how do we retain or get people involved in what, in the process? And I go back to like what I did when I was canvassing and trying to educate those around us about at the high level, this is what the Democratic Party has done. But
Did he die?
Brian, are you still there?
We can't hear
Brian,
you.
we can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
I think you went on mute.
Brian, we can't hear you. Hold on, let me see if I can pop you. It says unmuted from.
Can't hear you.
Can
Jazz,
you hear
you want
me?
to start? Yes, we can hear you.
Jazz, you want to go? Go, Jazz. Go, Jazz.
I was just jumping on because I do think we have to be mindful, right? Like when we're talking about these things, to really think of it as a bigger picture, right? In the collective and what part we play in it. And I think oftentimes we want people to do something for us, but we don't put them in positions to do things. And when it comes to the Democratic Party, I think a lot of times, like even in this moment, we're like screaming at the top of our lungs, do something, do something, do something. And I'm just like, well, all the seats in the House were up. Every single seat in the House was up. Literally, every single seat was up. When on this platform, we said, don't just focus on the general election and the top two candidates. We said the House and the Senate are going to need us to flip the House and the Senate so that we can retain seats in the House, we can retain seats in the Senate, right? And I think a lot of times what happens is we don't like to take accountability and we only like to say our leaders aren't doing the right thing without realizing that we are the ones that put the leaders in there. We have to point the fingers at ourselves. We have to stop saying that they're weak, right? If we're not giving them the power to be anything but. Even when the examples that you used, right? And I agree with you. Right now, I don't really understand why they're not backing Zoran. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I will, and if they have a problem with him and they need to keep it in-house, that is something I agree with, right? But I also will say that when it came to Bryant, right? If you actually look at what happened in that election, you will see, and you talk to the constituents on the ground, a lot of them said they felt like that his focus was elsewhere. Now, I don't live in New York, right? But it takes the people of that district to show up to vote for him. And for whatever reason, they did not show up and actually go to the polls and select his name. That is up to the voter. There is no amount of money that I can flush into a system that if you are actually standing on your business, that you will be able to flush into that system and vote me out of. And sometimes we have to be understanding of the fact that we are the ones that don't allow some of these people to progress because we focus on the minutia and the stupid issues and don't just show up where we can. Like I think we make things bigger than they are sometimes. I am with you. I think the establishment of both parties needs to change, right? I'm not going to argue with that. I definitely agree with that. But I think we have to be honest about where we are and how people are actually showing up and not showing up. And when y'all started off the conversation, you started talking about Texas, right? We were talking about the rural areas. My question is, okay, instead of focusing on what we can't do, what is it that we can do to make sure those people do things that are going to be in their best interest? I listened to the tapes out of Kerr County, the tapes that had constituents on it saying to send the money back because that man is a communist. How do we get that mindset to shift? That's what we need to be focusing on. Not our leaders are weak. No, what is it that we can actually do to make sure that these people's mindset shifts? Because right now, what you see happening is you just see everybody going, that nothing can be done. These people are always going to be that way. I don't necessarily believe that. And if we really believe that,
But Jazzy, I have to put a pause there. Is that I don't see a lot of people saying that that we can't change it or we can't. I think as I'm listening to media and listening to independent media and listening to people and reading their articles on Substack and reading papers and stuff, there is a big cry for change. I believe in that change, that they can change.
What I mean by that is there's what I hear in a lot of independent media is the Democrats aren't doing anything. That's what I hear. And so for me, it's stop focusing on that. Stop focusing on they can't do anything, because we have already pointed out they're doing things the way that that are in the courts, right? They're doing things that can stop some of these things. But again, we as constituents did not put them in the position to actually win anything because we did not vote correctly. We are the ones that put ourselves in this position. That's the first piece we have to understand. But on top of that, now that we understand that, it's now how do I help my leaders be able to accomplish what we want them to accomplish? And by sitting around and going, the leaders suck, that's not helpful. And to Elisa's point, sometimes you have to get into their face and say, hey, this is what you need to do. Why did Georgia flip blue? Georgia flipped blue because of the fact that Stacey Abrams and a whole bunch of nonprofits went door to door, knocking on people's doors and saying, this is exactly what is going on. This is how things are happening. And they made sure that they provided resources for the people to get to the polls, for people to get educated, right? It's not that it can't be done. It's the fact that we just sit around talking about it can't be done instead of doing something for it. And I get it. Some of these areas, it takes a lot to shift their mindset. Even the people, sometimes when I'm talking to people, I had to ask somebody yesterday, I said, listen, I hear what you're saying, but from what I hear you saying, you're basically saying that nothing can be done. We have to stop that language and start saying, okay, stop saying the Democrats are weak and start saying, okay, here's where they are strong. If this is what you really believe in. Because the moment you keep preaching, they're weak, the people that don't want to show up anyway, now you're giving them that excuse to. Now you're saying to them, okay, you don't need to. So we have to shift the way that we talk about some of these things. That's all I got.
I agree with you. Brian, you have something to say?
You can hear me?
Yes, we hear you, sir.
All right. Sorry, it's the Wi-Fi. Along that point of jazz. Oh, first, I can't forget Gwendolyn. Earlier, I swear I could hear your thoughts.
Oh, Gwendolyn's face says everything. Yeah, I don't ever guess what she's saying. I can hear her voice and her face. We laugh about it all the time.
Look up and that raised eyebrow and that head nod. I could hear my but on that, but to that point, and maybe it's this overlaps what this project I'm working on that I'm traveling for, and in my opinion, some Democratic leadership is still going by this OG playbook of a fair fight. And I'll just go back to that. And I'm working with some military personnel that I'm entrenched with all week. And the one gentleman said, that plan, it goes out the window after that first shot is fired. And so if you continue to go by that original plan, you and your platoon are going to be wiped out. And that's what I hear or observe, or my opinion, with a lot of the leadership. And I keep repeating the line from The Untouchables when, Sean Connery and Kevin Costner are in the church and he's like, how do I get Capone? And I'm not advocating violence, but Sean Connery's character said, you want to know how to get Capone? When he sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. When he pulls a knife, you pull a gun. They continue to try to fight fair when the other party has thrown out the rule book. And you can, and I'll park with this, in my opinion, you can have many different avenues to get the objective done. I look at the civil rights movement. We had, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you had SNLC, you had SNCC, these different organizations, but they all were going towards the North Star in their own paths. So, we can have some democratic leadership going a legal route. What Elise has recommended, I do that. I had a meeting. I finally had a one-on-one meeting on Saturday before I left town with my elected representative. And that was humbling. And I called her on her bullshit in a respectful manner. But the consistency of doing what you can when you can, texting if you can, constantly calling their office and you will get their machine or whatever, but consistently with that. And I go back to reminding all of us, myself included, these mofos work for us. They work for us. I don't care if you work at McDonald's or if you're an Uber driver, they work for us. We are their bosses. So hold them accountable, be consistent, be respectful, but be consistent and be involved.
And Gwendolyn?
Can I?
Oh, sorry.
Can I,
Go ahead,
oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
You can go.
I also want to speak to one thing, right? I think sometimes we always look to the civil rights movement and we talk about how it was done, right? But I think sometimes we don't understand how contained that movement was to a certain area, right? And I say that because I think sometimes we're always looking for somebody to like rise up as a new Martin Luther King and beholden to all of us and say like, okay, now this person's ascending, without remembering that there were hundreds of people standing behind him in order for him to do the work that he did. And so I want us to just remember, like Brian just said, we are the people that are hiring them. We are their bosses. It's not the other way around. And we have confused ourselves into believing that like, okay, now that we put you here, you're going to do everything in your power that you said you were going to do without giving them other resources and backing them up in it. I can't go and fight for teachers if the teachers union is not fighting behind me. If the teachers union is doing everything they can to fight against me, I can't fight for you. And what I see a lot of times is like, we want our politicians to do something for us, but then we fight against them in every turn to get the things that we say that we want accomplished. Like, so I just think that we have to figure out a way to get people to understand that we are the ones that are in power. We're the ones that are in control. And if we understand our power and the control that we actually have and actually go in with the actual agenda and stop being so flighty, because that's half the battle, is half the things we don't even know what we want. We're like, we want a flagpole. We want potholes fixed. We want the street clean. And that's all good things. But how do we say this to a politician? And how do we say, okay, now where's the budget for these things? Go look at your state budget. They have to put their state budget on your website. You can go to mystate.maryland.gov. You can go to the website and see what the budget and where the money allocates to. And then you can say, hey, like I see over here that you're allocating a whole bunch of money to things that I don't agree with. Now, how do I get that changed? Some of the stuff that you got to do the work. And I don't think we don't like doing some of the work that we need to do to figure out the stuff that we need to do. Politics is that's our liveliness. That's our livelihood. And I think so much, I saw somebody the other day, they talked about how the weather app, they said, oh, I wish I could get a new weather app that gives me accurate weather. And I said, okay, so no, because you want to know why the weather is no longer accurate is because they are cutting these jobs, right? They don't have an understanding. Most people don't understand what the government does because they do it and we don't really think about how there's a ripple effect there, right? So some of this stuff is kind of like, you have to really show people like, hey, if you cut this program here, this is going to have a ripple effect over here. And you have to be vocal about it and loud about it and start, I guess I say all that to say, let's stop talking about the things that they're not doing and talk about the things that they are doing. Because every time we give them, every time we say they're not doing this, that, what are they doing? Tell people what they're doing instead of saying they're not doing anything, because they are doing things. And I think it just needs to be said over and over again on these independent platforms, especially because we already know big media is not going to do anything. I talk about the fairness doctrine, I'm not, but look it up and look up what that means. But we have to be the ones that are being more vocal about it and stop just saying we're weak. No, we're not. There are certain things we are weak about. And like Gwendolyn said earlier, right? What I feel like we're weak about is wanting perfection in everything that people do. There is no perfection in politics ever. Because what I need is not what you need. There's no perfection. So stop asking for that.
Yeah. Gwendolyn.
Yeah, and stop asking for that.
So clearly we're discussing civic duty, right? So as individuals, we have a civic duty to be active in our community. If you want something to work, you got to get out there and make it work. It won't do it by itself. But I do want us to just stop and talk about changing people's mindsets. So what happened in Kerr County, it is awful. At some point, you have to pay the price. Ron and I, we talked about this yesterday. You can do preventive health care and pay less, or you cannot do it and pay more when you're at the hospital and you need surgery and you need this medicine. At some point, you have to pay it. Getting people to not believe lies they've been told all their life, that is like telling a 2-year-old that Santa Claus does not exist. That's some hard shit, okay? That's years and years and years of someone feeding them a particular message, so much so that you would much rather be in pain than take money to save you and yours. Now, I don't want to say that you have to wait until something really awful happens, because even then, people will stick to what they know. But that's not the conversation. The conversation is we all have an impact. You need to find your audience, the most viable audience, your 5 people, your 10 people. You start working with those people. Because there is somebody you know who is not active, who will share some conspiracy theory and who will talk some stupid stuff that gets on your last nerve. I have a couple in my family. My brother's one. Love him dearly, but he is one.
Did
but
you just pull out your brother?
At some point, I'm just saying, like, let's just be honest. We all know somebody like that. We all have them. Yeah. But that's who you talk to. Because yes, can we go door to door? We can definitely go door to door. But that's one visit. It can even be 2. But you see these people in your life
every day.
Week. And it is that constant message. Repetition eventually creates recognition. You got to keep saying it. You have to stay in their face. I can't be down in small town Texas every day, because that's a drive, first of all, right? But somebody else can. Somebody else can say, I'm going to be that little spark in this community. That's the one person. And then you just keep getting into good trouble. That's how you eat an elephant. Why do we talk about elephants? I don't understand that. But that's how you eat an elephant.
Why would you want to eat an elephant?
I don't know. Like, who made that up?
Who came up with that saying?
I don't know.
I don't get it.
Go ahead, Gwendolyn.
But that is how you move the needle. And it's not that you do one thing. It is a multi-pronged approach. So yes, I'm going to do some calling. I'm going to do some community chats at the coffee center or on the corner, whatever it is. But it's a multi-pronged approach. And there is a place to share your disappointment. That place is valid. At the exact same time, you can't stay there and just bitch all day. So now that you brought it up, what you going to do? What I did in my community, when I was upset about the trash being left at bus stops in Houston, I decided to adopt a bus stop. And I went and picked up trash and kept it clean for my community. You got to get in it. If you want something, you got to go work for it. Otherwise, don't say nothing, and you don't get to complain when stuff's not happening.
Absolutely. Totally agree. And I think that's what people, like when people, I wanted to go back to something Jazzy said too, about how you have to show up once you get people in space. Like a lot of people criticize Barack Obama, right? Barack Obama specifically said, I'm going to need you all to show up in 2010.
I'm going to need you. I'm going to need you.
And what do people do?
He said it in his first speech.
He said, I'm going to need you to show up.
Yes,
we
and
need
they
to
did
show
not. Some did
effort.
not show up.
And what the people didn't, they didn't. And what happened as a result of that?
That's right.
He was able to get what he could get in during that time, and everything else they pushed back. Mitch McConnell made sure he did not get his Supreme Court justice for a year. When the monster came in, 21 days, Coney Barrett was approved in 21 days.
Yes.
They did not approve. They would not let him put that person forward. And because people didn't show up, he didn't accomplish all the things you wanted him to do. And I always, like, we have to, when we in these conversations, like Jazzy says, we have to tell people, it's like, you do have this, right? You do have that, right? You remember where that came from. You have to remind people. You have to be real specific about it. But if you don't show up, your showing up is not a one-time thing. And that's why, we have to push really hard with people that we talk to get them to understand it's not just about every 4 years. It's every year. Anytime there's any type of voting going on, it's a special election. It's all of those things that you have to show up for. Then where, the voices in Florida, if people in Miami, Florida, or whatever, they're telling you're not going to be able to vote this year. And there are other people who are looking at doing the same things with their communities. Then you have to keep telling people that's why you have to show up, because they can make those decisions. Because guess what? Some of y'all didn't show up. Mine's in Texas. Y'all, you may be out there and big and blue, but you got to show up and vote. You have to show up and vote. And if you're
not only that, but if I add on, and I'll let you continue, is that with Miami City and a bunch of these places that are now suspending their elections, there has to be people in the streets saying, what the heck, this we are not accepting this, and calling and saying, this is not something we will accept as a community. We will not have our elections suspended. Is it crickets? Is it crickets? Am I the only one that's not hearing things?
Hopefully that somebody's doing some lawsuits, because they need to be suing. They need to be doing everything they can to get this undone. Because I tell people, with all of my heart, this is the test case for not having elections next year. This is what this is. This is all laying the groundwork for that, and how people respond and whatever needs to happen. You have to get that. You have to figure out that part. Understand, this is the test case. Florida, Texas, and Tennessee, those are test states.
They're always doing a test.
Worst and most cruel things they ever want to do, they're testing it there. And as people sit by and watch the cruelty, they're testing it wherever. I know it's Miami. There are some other places that are looking at not having elections this year as well. You need to look at that. There needs to be lawsuits, yes, but this is clearly the test case for not having elections in 2026.
That's right.
So I want folks to fully embrace that and understand that this is not a joke. This is not a game.
This is not a joke.
And can I just say too, like, keep spreading that word and keep saying it, because I think a lot of times people don't understand it's happening until it's too late. I realize a lot of people don't watch the news. A lot of people they're not into politics. And like Gwendolyn said, sometimes it just starts by picking up that phone, calling your brother, your sister, your cousin, your auntie, whoever the case may be, so that they can spread the word, and it's a ripple effect. Because I'll tell you, a lot of people probably don't even know what's going on in Miami right now. We have to understand what's happening in the news and how they're not actually spreading the word intentionally, because they don't want people to show up and they don't want people to be a part of the conversation. So it's about getting some of these independent media sources, and even some of the ones that are unexpected, to show up and call out and say, these are the things that are happening. Because, I'll do it. I'll say, I watched Love Island too. Listen, I was a part of Little Love Island, whatever. Okay, I was on that little band. Don't judge me, Gwendolyn. I see the face. Okay. but I see all up and down my timeline. Everybody, it's a horrible show. Don't watch it. But I see all up and down my timeline stuff about arbitrary things, right? And I think it's because I feel like so many people watched it this year. I've been watching it for years, and don't judge me. But I feel like so many people watched it this year because there's a fatigue going on where people are just like, I'm overwhelmed by the doom and gloom. And that's why I say, like, we can't just talk about the things that aren't being done. We have to give people something to latch onto, to be positive for, to hope for, right? And then we always say everything is going to disaster and is everything, which, I mean, I understand a lot of it is, but we have to have some kind of like, hey, this is what's going on, so that we can give somebody some, Yeah, exactly. We have to give somebody some
You're
kind
gonna
of
die,
hope.
though.
So
Okay, so we're gonna end it here, y'all. We're gonna
Your
end it
camel
here.
Simon is coming soon.
It is 12:37. We're gonna end it. We got tomorrow is Trend Watch Talk, so we'll be able to continue this conversation because Gwendolyn did have 2 topics. I think we should definitely address.
Oh, yeah.
We did skirt with the Kerr County. That was
Kerr
hard,
County.
but there's two items that are really necessary. And Gwendolyn, you want to get them to them, or
Yes, I want to talk about Teddy Bridgewater giving money to his high school team. I should say covering the cost of his high school football team. And I want to talk about RG3 very clear hate for Black women. I'm just trying to understand all of that because he getting on my last nerve.
Shaq coming for him.
listen, see,
and you
listen.
also had the former. And I think whether you also had the former Giant. Oh, it's the same thing with London.
Yes, because RG3 is doing some stuff, and I mean, it is just beyond disgusting. And whenever you talk about how people hate Black women, well, it's not about that. No. Call it what it is. But that's tomorrow's conversation.
Shaquille O'Neal said, "Keep Angel Reese's name out your mouth."
I'm here for Shaquille. He said, I support it. I triple down on it. Thank you. As it needs to be said. Because
and just to let everyone know, I have let everybody know I have an artist talk coming up tonight at 8:30.
Oh,
with the artist
nice.
who did Ultra Black. So that should be great.
On Instagram.
On Instagram Live.
Where can they find you on Instagram?
At SAlieze. That's SALIEZE _.
Excellent. Okay, so we're gonna be supporting Alize this evening, and so that's what we'll do as a community, as we always try to do. Also, and you can tell how Gwendolyn, myself, Alize, and because I'm saying the 3 of us, is that we have some hardcore mindsets and education, and we bring perspective. And there's that face again, but it doesn't dampen our relationships, and it doesn't dampen our friendships. We learn from each other, and this is what this is what made life so beautiful in the old days. The old days is that people gathered in the square to hash out politics and to hash out conversation, to hash out. It didn't mean they hated each other. It didn't mean they didn't like each other. It meant because they were learning from each other. So I just want people to know that that's how we walk away, and that I learned a lot from Alize, and I'm sure she learned something from me. Maybe. And the same thing with Gwendolyn. But the whole
I do.
Dramatic pause.
A dramatic pause. I was like, well, but we're all in this together, and that's why we're here, and that's why we come together. And Gwendolyn said,
"Look, I was listening to my landline ring."
Gwendolyn says, "Hatchet from hash meaning from hash
darn typos,
meaning cutting through the BS,
cutting through the bullshit." Okay, fine.
Okay. So anyway, have a great day. It is hump day. Get out there, do something special for yourself, and we'll be here. We'll be back tomorrow. And thank you for joining. Thank you, Brian, for joining. Thank you, Jazzy, for joining. Thank you, Alize, for joining. Thank you, Gwendolyn, Miss GR Houston.
Can I give
I will plug? Tomorrow. No plug. No. Oh, wait, you got a plug? What's the plug?
In the coming weeks, I'll be starting back up my art therapy lives because I've got a deadline for some commissioned automotive artwork that I don't know how I'm going to do. So my art therapy lives usually at night, and
when you get the date, then we're going to be saying, when you say Brian says, "Hey, I'm going to be on such and such time, such and such date." Then we're gonna.
I'm shooting for this Sunday, but we'll see when I get back home. But yeah.
Give us a date and time, like Gwendolyn told me yesterday.
See, you want to bring up private stuff from our conversations into the community square. Now
No,
you
you
know
just-
darn well you have to bring that up,
you-
Mr. Foster. It's okay though.
Gwendolyn was-
I got you tomorrow. I got you, partner. I got you tomorrow.
Gwendolyn was giving me some great insight yesterday.
Trust, this Virgo will not forget. Oh, it's on a post-it
Oh
note.
Lord, the Virgos.
Yeah.
The Virgos. Oh my gosh, the Virgos. Anyway, guys, have a great day. Enjoy and see you tomorrow. Hello, and thank you for joining us today. Make sure you hit the like, the subscribe, and leave a comment on this video. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again. Until I see you next time.